Aren't those the weirdest looking clouds? Those aren't clouds, those are bombs. Look at that. They're like streaks. Streaks in the sky. Yeah, just how dumb do you think we are that we can't tell that those are not clouds? Jeez. Yeah, those are streaks. Bomb streaks, look at that. The bomb just is going, look at that. My, whoever the Jesuit leader are, they sure have been launching a lot of bombs. Those are not clouds, those are bombs. Alright, it's almost time for my weekly video. I'm actually taking my mother's death very well. I don't consider it a death, I consider it a rapture. Yeah, because the way she went, it was amazing. Buddha was with her, and she recounted to him her life. And Zach actually told me during one of our Discord hangouts exactly what happened. He told me orally. She also talked about when she was a young woman, she was apparently like second place in the Miss Tokyo beauty pageant. This was around 1952, I think, or 53. And she had the newspaper clipping in her room, and she was very beautiful. And when I was growing up, she was a swimsuit model. So I was kind of puzzled when Rule 13 told me that your mother is not telling the complete truth about her history. Apparently, she told me she met my dad. My father is not Bill Fuller, obviously. My name is Chord. His name was Robert Chord. He is or was, I don't even know if he's alive. He was born in 1926, and when I was 3 years old, my parents divorced, and I never really kept tabs with him. At the most, I got a Christmas card from him once a year, and my mother always told us growing up that he was a cold ice cube sort of a man, and I pretty much believed it, but I had some doubts, because every time that I did meet him, like when we used to visit his paternal grandparents growing up, he was very polite, I would say very well-mannered, and my mother would say that that was his front, that behind the polite, well-mannered front was a cold, selfish man. And when I was growing up, she used to always tell me, you are just like your dad, cold and selfish. So I tried to be the total opposite. Now, what's really ironic about this, see, my mother was a narcissist. I have mentioned this. See if I can fix the lighting here. In some videos, I think. You can say, oh, you shouldn't talk about your mother like this. Well, it's a fact. I mean, narcissists die just like anybody else, you know. So she was a narcissist. I was raised by a narcissist. My men have told me that themselves. In fact, she was actually poisoning my relationship when her husband Bill died. Okay, this was not my father, this was my stepdad. Bill was a wonderful man. Her narcissism went crazy. I mean, Bill was very good for her. He actually helped her to get out of some of her narcissism, okay? When he died, she decided she wanted to attach herself to somebody else. And she unfortunately chose my sister. See, when I was growing up, I was the scapegoat, and my sister was the golden child. Those of you that know a little bit about narcissism, you'll understand that. Right now, the Jesuit leader, who I think is my sister, is dropping bombs like crazy. They're making my eyes red. I still have that swollen bunion or whatever it is on the bottom of my foot, which came on very fast. It is a mite attack. She's using the mites, as I talked about in my last YouTube video. You can see the eyes red there. That's mites. She's basically, the mites are not a new technology. They started with Laurie McBride, okay? But Laurie has turned good. But they started with Laurie McBride. But yes, I was the scapegoat. My sister was, you say, what are mites? Well, the Jesuits chose to attack me with mites because Jesus' Seroquel basically cured me of my yeast infection. And also, once Zach came over to our side, he has antibiotic semen. And his semen, he gives it to me regularly, like he'll ejaculate into my drinking cup, so I'm taking it orally. So I'm getting antibiotic semen all the time. And his semen can kill any germ in existence. Yeah. So with me drinking that, the Jesuits know it's not, if they want to attack me with a microorganism, they can't use germs anymore because of Zach's semen, okay? So they invented a monstrosity called mites. Mites act like a germ. This is how mites act. They're microscopic, they're small, and they are programmable. So they can, that once they get them into your blood, and they found the most effective way to do that is through these bombs. So you inhale the mites, they get into your bloodstream, then they travel to the part of the body where the Jesuits want to attack you. These mites, seems like the latest version are shapeshifter mites, which means they're hard to detect even with our x-rays, because we have like x-rays at Church of Gail. They can mimic the configuration of a regular cell. So they're shapeshifters. So like if they want to attack your eyes, they could go into your eyes and look just like a regular eye cell, okay? The difference is the master programmer can cause them to release nasty toxins or allergens or whatever to cause inflammation, itching, redness, swelling, whatever they want to do. And they made them shapeshifter mites so that we wouldn't be able to detect them and eliminate them easily. And my husband Brent has been working with his team to try to eliminate the mites. They're putting the mites in the bombs. You saw some of the bombs. Yeah, I woke up this morning, my eyes were feeling very irritated, and they can also go to the intestines and try to convince you that you may have a condition like you have to avoid FODMAPs or something, which they fooled me with the mites. When Laurie McBride was the Jesuit leader, she used mites to go to my intestines and give me irritable bowel whenever I ate a food that had high FODMAP. So for a while there, I thought I had that problem, and I was avoiding foods that were high FODMAP, but I started noticing there were some inconsistencies there, and it didn't seem to matter what I ate. And I was actually violating the Gail commandment by doing that. But see, what happened is I made pasta primavera one day, and which is loaded with, and I put snow peas in it and garlic because I loved it, you know. And oh, I got so bloated, I looked like I was pregnant, and I got the diarrhea, and I was very uncomfortable. So I said, I must have the FODMAP problem, because I couldn't figure this out, because in the 1990s I made it and never had a problem. So as a result of that, and then I had other instances that convinced me that I had that problem. But my men were telling me, they said, we've done scans on your body, you don't have a problem with FODMAPs. Finally, they convinced me, and I've just totally abandoned the FODMAP the low FODMAP diet. And but still, every now and then I will get the diarrhea, the bloating, and I figured out it's the mites. It's totally out of my control. If anything, I should continue to eat a balanced diet and not limit my foods according to some regimen, because it won't make any difference. If I get the diarrhea or the bloating, it has nothing to do with what I'm eating, unless I'm eating off balance. I mean, obviously, if you're eating tons and tons of fiber, which I did sometimes, you're going to get some bloating and that sort of thing. But if you're eating a balanced diet and you're not going overboard with any of your food, and you're still experiencing like the diarrhea and all that, it could very well be the mites. You say, how do you deal with it? I would say the best thing to do is drink a lot of water, okay? Because Brent is working on it, okay? He's working on it with his team of doctors. Drink a lot. If you're having a problem with mites, and just about everybody is, what's really bad about these mites, what's really bad about them is that it appears that the Jesuit leader is able to program them. So basically you're saying, this is horrible. This is biological chemical warfare. You better believe it is. And we all have them in our bodies. You say, well, you would think that the Jesuit leader wouldn't do this because it would affect their own people. This is where it gets tricky. It appears the mites you can have them in your body, but they only act up on signal. So that would mean that if a Jesuit had the mites in their body, they wouldn't get symptoms unless they were going against their leader. So, like, the way it works is like this. The mites are in all of us because they're in the bombs. We're inhaling them, they're getting into our blood, and if you are somebody that they want to target and they want to make suffer, they program the mites in your body to act up, to release the toxins, to make you feel ill or whatever they're trying to do, to cause the bunion in your foot to swell. See, they're sending the mites down to my foot, and I'm looking, I should have made a video about this last week. It's still swollen down there, and it came on really fast. It appears to be some sort of lymph node. Apparently these mites, these shapeshifter mites, actually become the lymph cells. They go down there to the bottom of my foot, and then they release a nasty toxin which causes inflammation and pain in that part of my foot. I have noticed, though, that when I will go out for a walk, that after walking about 5 or 10 minutes, it actually gets better. Now, if this was not caused by mites, that wouldn't make any sense. The reason it's getting better is because my blood is circulating, because I'm walking, right? Okay? My blood is circulating because I'm walking, and that enables Brent and his team of doctors to more efficiently remove the mites from my body. You got to understand how these mites work. Okay, we're inhaling them. They're in our blood. They're shapeshifter mites. So let's say they want to attack your foot, like what they're doing to me. Okay? So here's what they do. They're shapeshifter mites. That means they can look like the cells of your body, so that makes them hard to detect. Sometimes the only way, and I think Brent's working on detecting them, but sometimes the only way to find them is when they release their toxins, and they're thinking, this is not the way a normal cell in this part of the body is supposed to respond. So, so let's say you've got the shapeshifter mites in your colon, okay? And they want to attack your foot. What they will do is and Brent, as a doctor, is working on removing the mites from your foot, which is causing swelling down there, okay? Okay, so you think, whoa, we got all the mites out of your foot, so now your foot's going to be healed. So the enemy says, whoa, we are done here. We got some shapeshifter mites left in your colon. Now, the colon is the size of a football field, folks. So what they're going to do is say, signal, shapeshifter mites in the colon, travel down to the foot and become a lymph node down there and swell up her. So the colon mites, they go into the blood, they travel down to the foot, and they lodge in there and just become the replacement for the mites that Brent just removed. That's why we're having a hard time dealing with this. If they're anywhere in your body, once they get, all the Jesuits have to do is signal them, leave your present location, jump into the blood, get into the nearest capillary or vein or artery, and travel to a new location to cause more problems. Ha! We are not happy that Brent Spiner has removed the mites from Gail's foot. We got to put some more in there. So there you go, man. You say, what a horrible invention. Now this is where it gets tricky. You could have a body full of mites, but these are shapeshifter mites, right? But let's say you are a nasty Jesuit, okay? You're a nasty Jesuit. You say, well, that isn't very nice of the Jesuits to give their own people mites. Yeah, but this is how it works, folks. So you're a nasty Jesuit, you're inhaling the mites because you live in the same town as Gail Schuler, right? However, you're not getting any symptoms. You know why? It's because the mites operate on signal. Whoever created these things, the monster that created these things, whoever the Jesuit leader is, the monster, and it's a monster to create something like this. Let me tell you why. If this, let me tell you what these mites could do, okay? Let's say a Jesuit decided they wanted to defect. Okay, their body's full of mites. These are shapeshifter mites. They look like they can change their configuration. They can camouflage themselves and look like any cell in your body. And they decide, I'm tired of being mean. I think I'm going to go over to the good side and join up with Gail and her men. This just isn't cool. I want to be a nice person. So, well, you know what's going to happen? The Jesuit leader's going to say, oh, no, your body's full of mites. We're going to punish you for defecting. So they're going to say, mites. And every part of this Jesuit defector's body, act up right now. Release toxins. All of a sudden, they're going to have rashes all over their body. And see, Brent would not be working on a Jesuit to try to get rid of all the mites. They could kill him using the mites. They could have rashes all over the body. They could send the mites to the heart. Yeah, to the heart. And cause inflammation. The heart. They would have a major case of myocarditis. Because of that, they could get such bad arrhythmias. Their heart could quit functioning. And you can actually die from bad enough arrhythmias because your heart's not able to pump blood if the arrhythmias get bad enough. So the person their heart could be going boom, 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 and then they're just going to pop down and die. And then you know what the Jesuit leader's going to say? Oh, dear. They're going to say the cause of death. They'll probably just make something up. Suicide. They killed themselves. They had an overdose of one of their tranquilizers. That's how it works, folks. Uh-huh. Besides, there's so much lying going on nowadays. I mean, everything is fake news. Even Gab is fake news. I mean, the only accurate news source is 00 on cable, which actually broadcasts from my website. Oh, by the way, I was about a week ago, or a week and a half ago, I was really busy with my website. I went to my website and, I don't know, all my share buttons were messed up. My Brent Spiner's rape video was messed up. It wasn't embedding properly, so I actually had to upload it to Rumble and embed it from there at my website. So I did major work, working around the clock, fixing up my website. It appears that Zach he's the one who hosts my website. He had to move it to a new server real quick, and the transfer was not smooth, and so I had to do major fix-ups. Apparently the Jesuit leader was trying to get my website down before the elections. Yeah, because we have genetic code voter ID. Yeah, we just totally ignore the elections. Yeah, I don't vote the regular way. Ever since they started posting my address when I vote, I use genetic code voter ID. That's conspiracy law, which my husband still honors. Yeah, we vote by genetic ID because there are clones out there. So, yeah. The clones are allowed to vote if they're a good clone. If they're not a Jesuit, they're allowed to vote. But that's why we have to have genetic code voter ID. Because, yeah, this is the only form of voter ID that recognizes that a person has clones. So let's say there's an election and we have some good Brent Spiner clones. and the good Brent Spiner clones want to vote, and then the real Brent wants to vote. Well, according to genetic code voter ID, they vote by genetic ID. So you say, how does that work? Yeah, the good thing is you can vote online this way. You can also go to regular voting booths. But once the ID gets into the system, it goes into a federal database, and once it gets registered in the database, if anybody else tries to vote with that ID, it won't work. It's a good way to avoid voter fraud. Yeah, you don't have to worry about bad ballots or any of that stuff. Yeah. So basically, under my law, voting has become federalized. Yeah. The only way you're going to get the true results of the election using that method, though, is at Gabriel Chon of Fox News. The last election, mainstream news has been lying about it from top to bottom. Yeah, I hardly ever watch. Sometimes I watch it because I'm no longer the president, so I don't have to worry about it influencing my judgment. But I'll watch it and think, fake news, turn it off. Yeah, don't even get hyped up about it. Brent Spiner's the president, and you can find, just when you go to my website, just do a search under U.S. President Brent Spiner in the search bar in the upper right, and read up on his cabinet. He basically adopted the cabinet that I have, and he's using that. My men tell me that, even though I did make some bad judgment calls within the past year, that's because this Jesuit leader seems to know very well how to exploit my weaknesses, which leads me to suspect it could be my sister. And unfortunately, she appears to be a full-fledged psychopath. Yeah. It hasn't been very comforting for me to figure that out. Yeah. The way she's been handling my mother's death leads me to suspect she's a psychopath. I have actually made some posts about her at my website. Here is the psychopathy checklist by Dr. Robert Hare, who I think is he created a list that psychiatrists are supposed to go by to determine if somebody is a psychopath or a clinical psychologist. Glib and superficial, that's her. Egocentric and grandiose, her. Lack of remorse or guilt. She's done horrible things to my men and to me, and she doesn't feel guilty about it at all. In fact, she murdered Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah, that's fake news, didn't report it, of course. Yeah, do you think she feels... Which is kind of ironic, because Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we found out during our trial with Satan, was actually on... One of the reasons she lived so long is because she made a deal with Satan so she could live longer. Yeah, you might want to go to my website and do a search on Satan at the Supreme Court to find out how that went. Deceitful and manipulative, definitely her. Lack of empathy. Now that I think about it, my sister and I have never been close. We kind of went our own ways after I became a Christian at age 14. But I don't recall she ever had any empathy. Even when she was a kid. Kind of spooky thinking about it. I don't recall it. And they say, how could you and her be so different? I've been trying to figure that out myself. You got to remember, she was the golden child and I was the scapegoat. And I was accused my whole life of being cold and selfish like my dad, so I tried to be the opposite because that's what I was accused of. And when I found out that Jesus died for my sins and that he loved me, I grabbed at it. My sister did not. Yeah, I never really respected my mother growing up because she was very unfair to me and abused me, and I wanted to be the opposite of her. And she, when I became a Christian, this was in California, she actually left the state because I did that. Because I would walk to church, and even if I couldn't get a ride, I'd walk a half an hour or longer just to go to church. I was so happy that I found a group of people that didn't think I was cold and selfish, like what my mother, and skinny and ugly, with polio legs, like what my mother told me. My sister was the Sandra D. Her maiden name was Sandra D. Chord. My mother gave her that name because she said she was like the actress Sandra D. Yeah, my mother apparently lied about some of her upbringing and how she met my dad. Apparently, she worked in a Japanese, I don't know, kind of like a prostitution sort of. Yeah. She kept that. She did a really good job of hiding that from us. You might say, how do you feel about that? Well, we've actually had prostitutes at Church of Gail. My attitude about sex is, if you're not hurting anyone and it's consensual, I don't have a problem with it. That's why I don't have a problem with the sex Jesus had with me. The only problem that I had with it was that he took my husband's root chakra. But he's got that right, so I don't have a problem with any of it. What's so funny is that when Jesus had sex with me, I'm kind of asexual and he's fully asexual. So that explains why both of us were having a kind of a hard time getting into it. But anyways, I'm getting off the subject. Okay, lack of empathy, shallow emotions, impulsive. My sister's got all this. Poor behavior controls. You can go to my website. I've done a more in-depth analysis of this need for excitement. She's gotten really, I haven't been close to her, but my men have been sort of following her. She's been with the Jesuits ever since she betrayed me and wrote a fake statement about me, which she conned my mother into submitting to a judge that got me locked up against my will in a psych ward in 2012. Yeah, I've got the evidence for it. We even have the recording of my mother, which is public at my website, confessing that my sister wrote the statement. Yeah. I never published it until after my mother's death because my mother requested that we not do so. To respect her, I did not. But I'm publishing it now because my sister needs to be exposed. So you just go to my website. You'll see it all there. Lack of responsibility, early behavior problems. Actually, I recall growing up, around age 19, my sister stole my identity. Yeah, I think she got my driver's license or something, and she somehow made it hers. She confessed it to me later, and I thought, why would she do that? And I forget the reason why she said she did it. But she said she fixed it all, that I didn't need to worry about it. So I did, though I thought it was rather strange. We weren't close. But psychopaths will do that. They will try to mirror somebody they admire. So apparently I had qualities, especially when I became a Christian and I maintained my virginity. She was very promiscuous, adult antisocial behavior. Actually, I can see that. I'm looking back over my life and seeing traits of psychopathy in her early on. And a lot of people believe psychopaths are born, not made. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I do think that my sister may have been born with psychopathic tendencies. I don't recall ever my whole life seeing her express any empathy. I'm serious. Even as a child. Looking back, I can't ever recall a time in my life where I saw my sister express empathy. That's actually a pretty telltale sign. You say, really? No, I can't. I can't think of any instance. Genuine empathy, never. I've never sensed it in her. I have sensed the opposite. I do recall there were times when I said things to her that should have provoked an empathy response, and what I got was very callous. And it kind of threw me off. I thought, what's wrong with her? You know, it's like, I don't get it. And I'm still trying to figure out how, because I'm loaded with empathy, which is one of the reasons I resigned from the presidency. When I realized that I wrongly executed millions of medical people because I fell for the Jesuit leader's hoax, because they put that thing on my door that said that we would need to report if we had any like COVID-like symptoms to the, you know. And I thought, oh my goodness, all this harm and suffering that I've caused these people, this is so wrong. I have to resign and make sure something like this never happens again. That's why my husband is the president, and I have no regrets about that decision. Because I have empathy. I actually thought, I will admit, fear was part of my motivating, because I didn't want to be forced to report COVID symptoms and have to, but I will admit that I actually thought I was doing some good. Yeah. I was tricked, very cleverly tricked, by somebody who apparently knew how to push my buttons. Psychopaths know how to do that. Makes me wonder. Oh, psychopaths are really good at finding your buttons. Early behavior problems. This brings up some interesting history. I recall back around when my grandmother was alive, my paternal grandmother. This is about 1989. She passed away right about that time. She was living with my dad, okay? When she passed away, my sister accused my father of killing his mother. And they said that his wife was part of the plot. My sister said that. And my sister was trying to get to the bottom of it. I remember this. And I wasn't sure what to believe. I do recall that when my grandmother passed away about 1989, and I visited her one time about 1988, I think it was, about a year before she left, and I wasn't poisoned when I visited them, but I remember thinking back then that, oh boy, I was lucky. I could have got poisoned. I was kind of naive because I wasn't close to my sister, and we kind of went our separate ways after I turned age 14 and became a Christian, because she was the rebellious, promiscuous hippie type, and I was the Christian. I was the rebel in the family because I became a Christian because my mother was like an atheist, I don't know, she was a bit of a Buddhist too. She had like a Buddha little temple in there, but she was definitely not a Christian. And she thought I turned into a religious fanatic. So my sister was still the golden child. And she never really had a desire to rebel against my mother. So what I think happened to my sister, I think deep down underneath she knew my mother was wrong in a lot of the things my mother did, because my mother was a narcissist. But because she was the golden child and she enjoyed being the favorite, she just buried her conscience totally. And because she had psychopathic tendencies, that was easy for her to do. I'm not sure about this business of being born a psychopath. I think it's that if somebody has psychopathic tendencies and they're raised in a loving family, that it could be overcome. They may not ever be strong with empathy, but they could possibly learn some empathy over time, But my sister didn't have that. She was raised by a narcissist. She was the golden child. So unfortunately, it appears, and I'm reading the list here, it appears that her psychopathy became full-blown. Yeah, so I think she basically made up stories about my father. If his wife was guilty of poisoning my grandmother to get her estate, which is what my sister accused her of, why did my father live so long? I know my father was alive, I don't know, but he basically made it to old age. And he had quite a lot he was a retired airline captain, so he wasn't poor. He had more money than my grandmother did. So I don't think my sister was right about them. Not only that, I had a conversation with Jesus several years ago about my dad, and he told me that your mother has lied to you about your father. He said you need to stop believing that you are a selfish, no-good girl like what she told you your whole life, because your father, he told me, was a good man. And he said your mother drove him away by her narcissism, by her selfishness. That's what Jesus told me. Okay, if my father was a good man, then he certainly didn't kill his mother, like my sister said. So that asks the question, why would my sister lie about my father like that? She was probably, when she did this, she was in her 20s, early 20s, I think. I don't know, maybe she was trying to get my grandmother's inheritance. I don't know. The point is, she lied about my father and about his wife and tried to paint them as murderers. And she tried to get the family to turn against them. My father pretty much, I think as a result of being treated like this, he pretty much keeps his distance from us. And I understand, because when you've got a psychopath in your family and they're trying to ruin your reputation and accuse you of being a murderer, yeah, I can understand why he does that. So Jesus told me my father was a good man. And yet my sister managed to convince many members of our family that he might have murdered his own mother. This is my sister. That's a pretty grievous thing to do. If she lied about him, yeah. I actually believed her for a while there. She's a pretty clever psychopath. Yeah, she has to be a psychopath to do something like that. Yeah. She's been like that. Now, this was in her 20s. She's in her 60s now, early 60s. You know, they've done studies on psychopathy, and they say it gets better with age. But then she lined up with the Jesuits starting around 2012. So that hasn't helped. And she's got a severe case of antisocial personality disorder. Yeah. I'm just giving you a little bit of her history. She's got all the... I went through the psychopathy checklist. She's just about everything on this list. I don't ever recall her having any empathy, even when she was a kid. You might say, why is she attacking you? Well, I'm a very powerful world leader right now, and she's on Satan's side. And what's really scary is that she knows Satan tried to kill Jesus, and she doesn't have a problem with it. It's pretty scary when you think about it, man. I've even speculated that maybe she encouraged Satan to kill Jesus. Thank God for my husband, Brent. Anyways, you guys, I've been making a lot of posts at my website about my sister and her psychopathy and how I think she's carrying it out. I've already given you instances from her youth. Stealing someone's identity is a crime. So she fits the psychopathy checklist right there, early behavior problems. She's definitely guilty of that. She stole my identity. She confessed it. If she didn't confess it, I may not have known. I guess she decided as a psychopath that she was going to get caught and get in trouble, so she decided to fix it. Yeah. I really admired her for getting a 4.0 grade point average in Bachelor of Science Nursing. But she might have been trying to mirror me, which psychopaths will do, because there were some traits that I had that she wished she had. And when I switched my major and dropped out of my nursing major, and because my nursing professor told me that I wasn't nursing material and she was going to flunk me in clinical, maybe my sister decided to become a nurse to prove she was better than me. And she graduated 4.0. She is a very goal-oriented person. I've noticed this about her. And she will not let anybody get in her way when she makes up her mind she wants to do something. She will run roughshod right over you. That is another psychopath trait. And that could explain how she managed to get the 4.0 grade point average. Well, she is highly intelligent, but part of the reason I graduated with honors from FSU too, but it required quite a lot of commitment. But I didn't I wasn't willing to run roughshod over people or neglect my friends to get that high grade point average. Which means if I was willing to do so, my grade point average possibly could have been higher. Like, I was willing to take time out from my studies to be a friend, to show some empathy, and to contribute to my church and to my community. When I could have maybe devoted more, though I was accused of being a bookworm in college. But anyways, you might say, what I'm saying is that she's very goal-oriented. I've noticed this about her. Like when I was staying at her place, when I went to my son's graduation, this was in 2012, she had really strict rules about how to maintain her house. And like certain things had to be done a certain way. Very inflexible about them too. Like the shoes had to be in a certain place. Everything had to be, like rigid. Boom, 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 boom. And like if you didn't do it like she would just go. I hear that could be traits of a psychopath. And I hear that she ties her husband up to a pole. Yeah, a pole. I thought, my God. Yeah, that way she can make sure he doesn't get, tell on her or something when she's gone. She ties him up to a pole. I said, how does he put up with that? And my men tell me he's just a cuck. Her first husband, this is her second husband. First husband, she accused him of being passive aggressive. I thought he was nice when I met him. He seemed like a really nice guy. But he didn't want to have kids. And she said she divorced him because he wouldn't give her any kids. You say a psychopath would want to have kids? Well, my mother tried to be the perfect parent. She said the reason she didn't get married was because she didn't want us to run the risk of having an abusive father. Maybe she had an abusive father growing up. Maybe that was one of the reasons she became a narcissist. I don't know, but I think my sister was trying to be a perfect parent to make her feel good about being a psychopath. That's what I think was going on with her. or I don't know if I should say, because psychopaths don't really have a conscience, but I think it was her front. The perfect parent, she needed the perfect parent image as her front so she could commit crimes and not be caught. I don't know if that makes any sense, but those of you that have a little familiarity with psychopathy, you can understand that. Every psychopath has a front where they have to appear perfect to the world so that they can commit their crimes and not be caught. So I think the perfect parent was her front, okay? So basically she needed kids for her front. That's what I think it was. I mean, I already told you she committed crimes even before she got married. Yeah. You say, how could she be so different from you? I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. I think she was born with psychopathic tendencies, and my mother never gave her the spanking that she needed. We asked Jesus about her, and Jesus said she just needs a good spanking. Yeah. He said a good spanking. So yeah, because we've actually put her in jail a couple times because of the crime she's committed against me, and it doesn't make her any better. They've done studies on psychopaths. When you put them in jail, it doesn't make them any better. It doesn't work. Yeah, it's very discouraging. Yeah, I've maintained no contact with her and my mother since 2015 because of the crimes they've committed against me. And I don't have any regrets. I did the right thing. I needed it for my sanity and for my safety because my sister's a psychopath. But she's got a really good front. That's the problem. And most people can't see through them. Anyways, I've created some good posts about her. She's lied about me. She tries to get me portrayed as the crazy person. Psychopaths will do that. I just rejected my mother's role model growing up, and my sister totally absorbed it. I think that's one of the reasons she became a full-fledged psychopath. So we had a narcissist mother. I rejected her role model, and I wanted to be the opposite of her. And it looks like I pretty much succeeded. Whereas my sister was the golden child and decided to model after my mother completely. And she even went further than my mother. My mother was just a narcissist, but I wouldn't go so far as to call her a sociopath or psychopath. Okay? So what my sister did is she modeled after my mother and took it further. That's what I think happened to her. She took it further. And she studied what my mother did wrong. See, my mother would go into hysterics growing up. And so we all could tell, growing up, me and my sister, we thought she was a little Lulu sometimes, because she would get in these narcissist rages, So I think my sister, with her psychopathic tendencies, kind of sat back and coolly observed her crazy mama. I mean, we both, as kids, we used to joke about how my mother got in her mood, And my reaction was, it was kind of funny in a way, but it wasn't funny when you were the victim of it. It was like, whoa, But I remember my sister had a more cool, rational response. It was like she was studying her own mother and trying to determine how she could emulate her, but more effectively. And I think that's why she became what she became, because she was the golden child. I think she made a decision growing up that even though she knew my mother was wrong in a lot of what she did, that she decided that she didn't care. That she enjoyed being the golden child, and she was going to be the golden child to the hilt. You say, did you resent your sister? No. I didn't blame my sister because I figured it's not her fault she's the golden child. Said it's my mother's fault. Yeah. So yeah. But I'm trying to figure out, so what you might say, why did your sister turn? Well, they've done studies on psychopaths. If they mirror somebody they admire, and they learn that that doesn't work and they can't get those traits, then they can turn against them. When she found out that I had all these hot guys in my life and that she didn't have them, which is apparently something she wanted, she got really jealous. They did reads on her and they said she's just raging with jealousy. Psychopaths can get jealous. And from that point forward, she has been dangerous in my life. She has turned into a dangerous criminal against me. And unfortunately, she's been obsessed with me. Yeah. And I think she hates Jesus because she's angry at him that I got all the traits and all the men that she wishes she could have got. Yeah, I was really puzzled by this, and I've been trying to figure her out, and yeah. I've never understood how she could be so cold. And it's really ironic because I was growing up, my mother always said I was cold. And her golden child ended up being the cold one. Yeah. Well, so narcissists will do that. They'll project themselves onto you. So when she was accusing me of being cold and selfish, she was actually projecting her own traits onto me. You might say, how can you say this about your mother? Well, I'm actually happy for her, and I did cry when I first learned that she might have died. But I'm over it now because Buddha was with her when she passed. And the last day of her life, she lost her narcissism. She admitted that she wasn't all she represented herself to be, that she actually met my father, I think, in a Japanese prostitution house. She was what you would call, Japan's a little different than here. Prostitution in Japan is not necessarily a bad thing. She was what I would call a high-class prostitute. Yeah, high class. She had high-class clients, I think. But it made her bitter, though. I think it was a tough life for her. I'm not sure why she chose that life. And I think that's how she met my dad. She wanted to marry a rich American and get away from her poor life in Japan. Jesus says that she drove my dad away by the way she was, that he's a good man. But she lied to us. She said they met in a department store. But she confessed all that to Buddha. Zach mentioned it. He didn't go into a lot of detail. And finally, Buddha said, Buddha didn't say anything. He just sat and quietly listened to her. And finally, she said, I wish I could get everything right. I wish I could fix my daughter, Sandra, and get it all right, but I'm just too old and tired. And then Buddha opened up a portal, and she ran into, and Bill was there with his arms extended. He was a wonderful guy. She got a good man for her second husband. And she ran into the portal, and she transformed into her young beauty pageant body. And that's how she left us. So the last day of her life, she overcame her narcissism. So I'm happy for her. I am distressed, though, at my sister's response to her passing. My sister has basically used this as an opportunity to try to get more control over me. Yeah. My sister was texted, so we could find out, because I found out from a phone call. I found out about my mother, but we didn't know right away who had died in the family. Then I got a message that somebody had died in the family, and that I was to contact my sister to find out who. So I had my men do that. And they texted her. Zach texted her, pretending like he was me. And her response, he says, "Can you tell me who died in the family?" And her response was, "Well, who do you think it was?" I thought, what a callous, insensitive thing to say to a sister when your mother has passed away. That's the response of a psychopath. Anyways, it's all on my website. And right now, this psychopath is dropping bombs like crazy, trying to get all my followers the mites. Yep, and they're all programmed. So we're all inhaling them, but only the ones that don't listen to the boss get punished. Typical psychopath. So anyways, this is my my video for this week. If you're suffering from the mites, and who isn't, though, she can program the mites so that they only act up on signal. Drink a lot of water. Continue to do the Gail commandments. And Brent's working on it. Yeah. I have found, though, with the foot mites, that there's pain at first, that if I wear New Balance shoes, it seems to help with the walks. Yeah. So you need to wear a good pair of shoes. I don't think I can handle longer walks, but once I get going and the blood gets circulating, the symptoms get better, which is kind of strange. Not your typical bunion there. Gotta be the mites. It's gotta be the mites. Okay, let's see if I can get out of here. Yeah, everything's been weird. Like my website almost went down. This Jesuit leader is very cold and calculating, and a good plotter. And they're really good at getting our buttons too, or getting my buttons anyway. Yeah, very cold, calculating. A plotter. I need to get out of here.